One of the worst kept secrets in gravel is now officially out with the launch of the new Canyon Grail. It has newly overhauled geometry, a snap-on bag, internal storage, and a full range of models at the very competitive pricing that the German consumer direct brand is known for. Out is the double-decker bar, and in is a new integrated bar stem that has a range of benefits but also has some limitations of its own. I did a video on this bike back in June when both the 100 and 200 mile women's races were won on this bike, and since then we've been seeing it in very faintly disguised paint schemes at races all over the world, including at Gravel Worlds just this past weekend, where Kasia Niewiadoma won the women's UCI gravel title on the bike. I got this bike under signed NDA a couple of weeks ago and I've put a few hundred miles on it. In this video, I'll tell you about what's new, what I like about the bike, what I don't like about the bike, and what you should consider if you're considering one of these. Before we get into it, please take a second to subscribe and then click the bell icon so you'll be notified whenever a new video from me pops up. Now sit back and enjoy the ride with the new Canyon Grail. Okay, there's a lot of new stuff here, so let's list it all out and then go through it one by one. Geometry is new. Storage in multiple configurations is new. The post, VCLS is out and a new post is in. The cockpit is new, including some clamp-on arrow options. Let's start with the geometry. Longer, more progressive, as the kids are saying, to the tune of about 2 centimeters or so. This medium sized bike that I have, which is maybe just a scoot under what traditionally would be a 56 centimeter bike, has a top tube of 58.6 and comes with a effective stem of 70 millimeters. So it's basically taken 2 mils from the stem and put it on the top tube. We've seen that with a few gravel bikes and certainly have seen that in the mountain bike world, I am told, for many years. The idea is just to get more stability while keeping your reach the same. Canyon still comes in 7 sizes, which is great as far as being able to get close to your size. What is a little trickier is while you can dial in the frame sizes, the integrated stem bar sizes are fixed on the bikes that you buy. Yes, you can order a bar stem separate later, but this is one of the dangers slash intricacies with ordering consumer direct with Canyon, is that you can't try the bike and configure it there in the bike shop because you're not buying it in a bike shop, you're buying it at home on your computer. Also with geometry, a scooch slacker to the tune of a 71.5 head tube. It's still like a little bit on the racier side of gravel. Typically like 72 has been like the steep racy side, and adventure gravel is more like 70 and slacker. My dog Barry has some things to say about this, so I'm gonna go let him out. The bike also gets a slightly longer wheelbase. I'll put the size geo chart along with prices in the description down below so you can take a peek and compare and contrast all the specs of your particular sizes. Something that continues from the pre-existing Grail is the 42 maximum tire size. Some of that is to keep the frame tight. Some of it is to allow for a big chainring up to a 56T ring and also a front derailleur should you like it, which I happen to. Got the Shimano GRX Di2 version here. Come on, Barry, you're making a bunch of noise. Seat post is a change. Out with the old, the VCLS style, in with the new, a stiffer, svelter size. Canyon, like a lot of brands, takes feedback from its sponsored athletes, from its consumers, and then just internally tries to read the tea leaves of, okay, what will sell more? Evidently, some of the feedback was, hey, the last bike was a little too squishy for a gravel race bike. So this is a stiffer post. It's still more flex than a road post, but not the same as the VCLS post. Canyon also says the post is a little more aero to the tune of 3 watts when going 45 kilometers an hour. The bike overall is also faster aerodynamically. That's certainly not hard to believe looking at the double-decker stacked configuration of the old bike. How much of a consideration is aerodynamics in gravel racing? Like everything in cycling, that depends, right? Is physics a factor when riding on gravel? Yes, of course. How much of that matters to you? You are the judge of that. But this bike is a little more aero than the last one. Speaking of aerodynamics, let's talk about this handlebar. Now, this guy that I've got here is one of the quote pro models, which is a 40 mil width, center to center, and then you can get 4 different effective stem lengths. The bars that come stock on the bikes range from 42 up to 46 centimeter with a fair amount of flare in the drops. It's a little surprising that a gravel race bike, where they're so focused on aerodynamics, they're talking about gaining 3 watts at the seat post, comes with a bigger bar, because I hate to tell you, my friends, but you are the big drag here. You can reduce the CDA, the aerodynamic drag on a bike, but really we, the meaty engines sitting on the thing, are the biggest source of drag, and the wider the frontal profile, the greater the drag. So a little curious that Canyon chose to go a little bit on the wider side. Again, this medium bike comes with a 44 center to center that flares out more. This is a noted departure from, say, the likes of the BMC Kayas, where all the bikes from little up to large, extra large, come with a 36 center to center bar configuration. One thing I do appreciate about this new bar setup is it's, as far as integrated bars go, it's heading more in the direction of a Goldilocks of having your integrated aesthetic and aero cake and keeping your adjustability too. Obviously you can't adjust the physical dimensions of the thing, but the brake hoses are run externally. So if you're scared of fluids like I am and disconnecting and reconnecting brakes, you don't have to mess with that. You can just slide off the hoods of the old bar, slide them onto the new one, rewrap the tape, you're good to go. The Di2 wiring does go internal. That's a little bit easier to deal with. And I should note that the steer is a standard 1/8", so should you not like this bar at all or any of the options, you can pop on a standard stem and a standard bar. I've definitely come around a bit on weirder looking bars. I think the Giant Revolt was my favorite gravel bike of the year. It's got a goofy looking bar. There's a lot of back sweep to it, a lot of bends and curves, but it feels good in the hands. So that was a lesson to me that my initial snootiness at how something looks doesn't necessarily translate to the comfort of the thing. This bar, you can decide for yourself what you think of the looks of it. The Pro model has more slope, more drop, more droop than the stock bar. So that's in part so they can get 15 mil lower stack than the stock bar. There's also this channel up front, which you can do a few things with. 1, put a computer mount on. 2, if you're into the aero bar thing, Canyon has a highly adjustable, if somewhat complicated aero bar that clamps on and has a fair amount of adjustability. One last thing on the bar is there's a bit of sculpting for where your thumbs sit here. You can feel that a bit when the bar is wrapped with tape. It's subtle, but you can feel it. I don't necessarily love the aesthetics of having this U-shaped cutout there. With aero bars not being a consideration, I would be fine with just having a computer mount mounted underneath. Aero bars for gravel, always a fun subject to argue about. I generally think they're dumb. However, I also generally think I can be dumb. The 2 times that I did Unbound Gravel, I scoffed at the idea of aero bars and then absolutely regretted not having them. So, good to have that option. And this is Canyon's way to engineer in all those options into a single one-piece setup. I should note that The integrated bar stem applies across the board from the top of the line $9,000 models down to the cheapest SL7, which I want to say is $2,700. Yeah, the Grail CF7, $26.99. There are 2, 4, 6, 7 models available in the US, up through the Grail CFR Limited, which is $89.99. Again, to reiterate some of the numbers, the stock bars run from 60 to 80 stem lengths and from 42 to 46 widths. You can get this Pro model, which is 40 mil width center to center, in 80 to 110 millimeter option. I asked for this guy, which is a 90, 20 millimeters longer than what comes stock on the medium bike. Bottom line, this new bar is worlds better than the double-decker in terms of, adjustability. You can move your thumb freely. There's no thumb jail on this compared to the double-decker. You can mount more things on it. You can adjust the height a little bit, not a huge amount. And should you not like it at all, you can discard this and put on a standard 1 1/8" stem and handlebar of your choice. Should you want to get a different Canyon bar, you can do that, but you can't swap it out, at least in the US. At the time of purchase, you've got to buy that separately. So that's a little bit of an issue with this consumer direct situation. Now let's talk ride feel. I've ridden a number of the Canyon Grails over the years, from the cheapest aluminum one when it first came out, through the mid-range up to the top-end bikes. Rode one of the Grasshopper events in California with Pete Stettin and some others on the Grail first year it was out. This bike is definitely stiffer, not just with at the seat post, but the frame itself and the fork are a bit stiffer. Some of that sure is for better power transfer, but you can definitely feel a little more of the vibrations coming up through the bike than the old one. I've only ridden this with the stock Aero wheels, so that's certainly not helping the compliance figure. It's not a harsh bike, but I would say it's on the scale of, say, like a Giant Revolt to Cervelo Aspero. It's now closer to the Cervelo Aspero feel. Now let's talk internal storage, which is increasingly a thing, not just on mountain and gravel bikes, but also on endurance bikes. You can take a peek at my video on the Canyon Endurace, which has top tube storage. I like the storage on this better. One, the location, the down tube is a better spot, I think, both aesthetically and just in terms of you've got more space there. The top cap seems a lot more secure on this than on the Endurace. And I just appreciate the configuration of what's inside there. Under the cap, you've got a wee little pump from Todson, little carbon pump. And then you've got your multi-tool. Sliding down into the top tube, there's a little bag that comes, with the TPU tube, which is, nice and light. And then levers, a CO2 breaker, and then you need to put in your own CO2. I think it's a nice, tidy solution. Certainly not the fastest, and for gravel events, I like to keep a CO2 and a Dynaplug in my pockets, preferably in a bibs pocket so you can just get to that quickly. But for the type of stops where you're having to put in a tube, I think it's fine to have this stuff tucked away. Anyhow, it's nice and clean. Like here, I've got a camera mount on the back. So no, this won't affect the way you ride necessarily, but I think it's just a nice, tidy solution. And for gravel racing, where you may be carrying more stuff and thinking about places to put stuff, having some of your flat fixings tucked away just gives you more options. So I think it's a cool thing. Another thing I like the idea and execution of is these magnetic snap-on bags. You've got 3 points of contact for the fidlock attachment, which is just magnets, basically. And the end result is you can pop on a bag and then pop the thing off. I'd like to see another longer option that runs the full length of the top tube. I think Trek does a great job with the integrated bags on its Checkpoint line that run the full width and are cut per size. I also like not having Velcro straps over the top. It's a small but noticeable thing. None of us like having our nice expensive shorts torn up by Velcro, so having something where there is no Velcro straps I think is slick, and just being able to pop the thing off and on quickly is cool. Canyon, being Canyon, of course measured this in the wind tunnel and found that having the bag on is a little bit faster aerodynamically than having the bike with no bag. Now on to what I love and what bugs me. I love the overall package, the sum of the parts here. I love the fact that it comes in multiple very price competitive models. This is $1 under $5 and comes with like high quality parts, right? Shimano GRX Di2, my favorite tires, Schwalbe G1 RS, some Aero DT Swiss, and the integrated cockpit, which if it fits you, is a great option. I like the internal storage. I like the fact that you're not locked into things. It's only a fid lock, you can quickly disengage. I like the pricing overall from, again, $2,600 to $9,000. Hyper competitive. Hard to beat that pricing out there. Appreciate the details in addition to the storage options, just things like the rubber chainstay protector or the little metal protector there should you get chain stuck. Hopefully the clutch on the derailleur will prevent that from ever happening, but just, little details. I think the thing looks good overall. Should also mention something I neglected to touch on earlier, the Universal Derailleur Hanger, new for this year. Not necessarily relevant for Shimano bikes, but for SRAM you can run a mullet, you can run the Eagle derailleur with no derailleur hanger, and that is a much tougher overall solution. So just like, not future-proof, nothing's ever future-proof, bikes are always changing, but certainly forward-looking compatibility at the rear end. Things I don't love, but I'm warming to, the bars. Now, certainly a far cry better than the double-decker bar. My biggest beef with the bar was not so much how it looked. That was a novelty, but that didn't kill me. But what bugged me was the fact that you couldn't adjust it. Like, want to make it longer? Tough. Want to go up? You could only, adjust down a scooch. So just the hyper limited fit options was, in my mind, the biggest problem with that bar. Here you've got more options, but they're still not as easy as pie. So this is very much a case of measure 3 times, cut or order once. And honestly, like, doing that remotely can be a bit of a bear. One thing I would like to see Canyon improve is the ability to let a customer order their desired stem length and bar width the first time when they order the bike and have that bike built up so they can receive it as such instead of just getting the stock bike out of the box, then having to order this separately and swap it over. So this is still, while this is much easier to deal with than the previous one, it's still something that you, the consumer, have to do yourself. You can argue, well, that's part of the trade-off in buying a consumer direct bike where you're saving money because you're not buying it at a bike shop and that you're not getting that bike shop experience. So just something to keep in mind with all Canyon bikes going forward. So that is the overview on the new Canyon Grail gravel bike. Let me know what you think. I'm going to spend a few more months riding this. I'm going to switch out the cockpit and I will come back to you with a full review on it after doing so. In the meantime, let me know what you think. Let me know what questions you have. Let me know what your experience has been with other Canyon bikes. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you subscribing, and I appreciate you making an earnest effort. Put the noise behind you and enjoy the ride.